Hi and welcome to my channel and welcome to the December wrap up. I'm doing things a little bit differently today and I thought I'd bring you along. This may be the way that I do it going forward just because I like the visuals of it and it makes it a lot easier for me to keep up with things. Now during the month of December, I have created a graphic that I have been not even really sharing anywhere. There's a few Discords that I've been periodically sharing it in, but mostly it was for me to keep up with and to track everything that I was reading. So I'm going to show you what it looks like now, and we'll talk about all the things that I read. The first thing we need to do is remove the things I am either currently reading or didn't get to read before the end of the month. So those are gone. Everything that's on here now is what I read. It's going to be a look through of what I read in December. And I don't have them in the order that I read them because I usually read more than one book at a time. So it's just kind of out there. That's how we're going to look at it, not in any particular order. We'll start with the one in the middle. These are the two books that I read for the self-published sci-fi competition. First, let's talk about Shakedowners. This has its own separate video because all of the ones from the competition are getting their own review video. So I'll make sure that I link that either up in the cards or down in the description. And the same thing with Lottery to Haven, which was the first book that I read from the competition. And it also had its own review. So that will also be either up above or down below. So go check those out if you've missed them. These are both self-published books and they're both in the sci-fi genre. I gave Lottery to Haven 2.5 out of 5 stars and I gave Shakedowners 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, this is just a random selection of books right here, but let's start here. We can call these first two the long books. So I started The Way of Kings, whatever that series is called. Stormlight Archives, maybe? I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I read The Way of Kings in December. I loved this. I was not surprised that I loved this. I kind of expected to. Now, every time I read a Brandon Sanderson book, I kind of expect to love it. So, I did, and I cannot wait until I continue with this series. I also read, continuing a series, speaking of that, I read The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie. Now, The Heroes is book 6, I think, in his overall series. I forgot what the name of his thing is called. First Law. So I read the First Law trilogy early in 2022, and then I read the next book after that, and I didn't love it. I've even forgotten what it was. I'm sorry. And so then it was something about revenge. Best Served Cold. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I didn't love it, and so I was kind of leery going into The Heroes, but I absolutely love this. Again, if you like videos, if you like books that are really war heavy, you will really like this book. All of it takes place on the Heroes, which is a hill that is called the Heroes. And so there's a lot of fighting. There's a ton of fighting, but we get to see a lot of our characters that I fell in love with in the first trilogy. So I was really happy to come back to these characters. Annabeth Albert is one of my old authors is what I call them. I have a list on my master list of everything. I have a list of 78 authors and Annabeth Albert is one of those. And so I literally go down this list. The green ones here are the ones that are on Kindle or that I read in ebook form, and the blue ones are the ones that I try to get on audio. And so I literally go down the list reading them, and once I finish that book, the next book by that author, I go down the list to the next one. And when I'm at the bottom, I circle back around to the top. So Annabeth Albert is my first in the list of the Kindle books, and I was at this one, which is book number 4 in her Rainbow Cove series. I did not love this book, but I have loved the Rainbow Cove books in general. It is straight up romance. Almost all of them are romance. So Django had to come say hi because he does not like it when we film and he doesn't get to be in it. So here's Django. Anyway, like I said, this is probably my least favorite of the Rainbow Cove books so far, but it was an Annabeth Albert, and I just like the way she writes. Then we just have random books over here. I had Ice Planet Barbarians on my list for a while, only because it was so popular and so many people were talking about it. And so I thought, well, I really want to read it. And then I was doing the Reindeer Readathon, and one of the prompts was that it had to have a space word in the title. And I didn't really want to go for a straight sci-fi book because I already am reading those for the self-published competition. And so I was thinking, do I have anything on my TBR already that has a space word in the title? And so I started going down my list, and this one was the first one. And I was like, okay, it's been on my list for a while. Let me just give it a try. This is way steamier than I normally read in my normal reading life. So I was a little bit shocked, but I love how it's set up things going forward and kind of in the style of the old school, fantasy romances that I used to read. This is absolutely in that same wheelhouse, and I'm probably going to continue on. I did go ahead and put book 2 somewhere on my TBR, so I will eventually get to it and I will read it, but it's definitely not what I reach for these days, but it was a nice palate cleanser in the middle of all of these other things. So we're going to wait on J.D. Robb for a second. So let's go under here. Kira Andrews is another one of my authors on my old author list. And this romance was an MM romance that involved fake dating. I am all about the fake dating tropes. If I'm reading a romance, I love them. If you've not been on my channel very long, you might not know that, but it is my favorite romance trait, hands down. If it's got fake dating, I will read it. So it's my favorite. And there's actually a whole series. Well, I don't know if it's a whole series. I know there's one more book that's in this Festive Fakes, it's called, and they're all about fake dating. So we'll see if I continue. I just wanted to read a Christmas romance. Everybody else was doing it. I saw a bunch of other channels reading Christmas romances, and I was like, I want to read one too. So I did, and I liked it. I liked it a lot better than the Rainbow Cove book. I'll just say that. Then, continuing on our romance theme, I have Ali Hazelwood's latest, Love on the Brain. I got this in my book of the month, so I read it in a physical copy of it. I don't know how long it's been since I've just read a physical copy of a book and not read it physically and listened to the audio or kind of went back and forth. This was just a physical book, and it's the first time in a really long time that I have just read a book in physical form. Anyway, I loved it. I laughed out loud multiple times. The wittiness of the writing is just unparalleled. I loved The Love Hypothesis so much that I thought Love on the Brain cannot be that good. It was. I don't know why, but the female characters that she writes are just the best. So I loved this book. I will definitely be continuing with the novellas that she has, and then I know she has another book that will be coming out in 2023, and I will be grabbing it. I love it. Okay, let's go over here, which is still romance, it turns out. So Lyssa Kay Adams is another one of my old authors, and she has the Bromance Book Club series. This is book number 5, and it's called Isn't It Bromantic? It's so cute. Anyway, in this book, we have somebody who is fake married, which again, goes back to my whole premise of the fake dating thing, but that's not true. We have one of our guys that's been in here since the very beginning. We knew in the beginning that he was married, but we didn't know that he married his wife so that she could get a visa and leave the country and come to America with him and go to her schooling. So he really wants to try to have a real marriage. She's like, I don't know. So that's how this one goes, and I loved it, of course. I have loved all these books in the Bromance Book Club. If you have not tried one yet, I highly, highly recommend that you get the first book and just give it a try. It blew me away. It was so funny and so good, and I loved it. Now, let's talk about one I was not wild about. I read this book in my book club, and we picked it because it sounded like it was going to be so funny. it was not funny to me. Like, it was funny in a cringy way where I was so embarrassed for this main character through a lot of this book. And it would just all of a sudden have horrible things happen. And I was like, hold on, are we supposed to think this is funny or not funny? Because it's not really funny. But I could not wrap my head around what was going on. And I will definitely not be continuing with this series. I thought that the storyline, it had a really cool plot. Everything else fell for me. Not great. My graphic novel that I picked up and read this month, Lock and Key, which I guess technically I read the first bind up of this, and I actually tried to find a picture of it and put it on here, but for some reason it won't save right on my computer and let me add it in here. So this is what we're looking at, but this is not the cover of mine. Anyway, I read the whole first arc, I guess. I don't know how they divide them up, but it was fantastic. Also, I read it completely physically the whole time, but that's because it's a graphic novel. I cannot wait for book 2. I already have it on my wish list, and I am excited to get going on it. It is so good. We have a family who has something horrible happen to them, and now they have moved in with their dad's brother in Lovecraft, Massachusetts, and we are seeing all the things that happen at the Key House, it's called, where they are living. Fantastic. Then we have Earth Divers, Volume 2 and 3. This one here actually is Volume 2. Okay, so this is Volume 2, this is Volume 3. And as I found out, they're not the only covers. There actually are 2 different covers. Anyway, I have pre-ordered this whole series on Amazon. This is written by Stephen Graham Jones, and it is called, the whole series is called Kill Columbus, Earth Divers Kill Columbus. And so they have discovered a cave where they can go back in time. So a Native American boy, I was trying to think of what his name is, but I don't know his name, has gone back, and he's not a boy, he's a man. He has gone back in time to 1492 to kill Christopher Columbus. That's the whole premise of this whole thing, and that's where we are. I read 2 and 3 in one day. They're so short, they take like 10 minutes. I love reading them. In November, Andrew and I finished the Wheel of Time series, and we had read earlier at the beginning of this year, or maybe even it was 2021 maybe, we read The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. We decided we needed to read Black House, which is the next book in the series. I actually think that Black House ties in. I was reading them because they were supposed to tie in to the Dark Tower overall books. And I think Black House ties in much more than The Talisman did. But I guess in general, they both kind of give you some ideas about how the world works or the multiple worlds work. And so I think that kind of helps as far as the Dark Tower goes. But this book itself, I thought it was really good. We saw the boy that was in The Talisman is now an adult, and we're following him, and there are murders that are happening in the town that he has retired from being a police detective and moved to this town, and now there are a series of murders happening in this town, and he kind of comes out of retirement to help solve the murders, but also at the same time, a lot of stuff from his past and from the Talisman book are being brought up and pulled forward, and he is dealing with all of that. So I thought that it was good. It was not the best, but I think a lot of times when Stephen King writes with someone else, I just don't enjoy them as much as when they're just his books. So I'm not sure, but it was okay. It was not wonderful. Then All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This I read at the very beginning of December, and I read it almost like on a whim. We were doing one of the midnight live streams with the Council of High Ladies that we do once a month, and we were getting ready to read, and I couldn't really decide what I wanted to start reading, and somebody in the comments was like, you need to read the Murderbot Diaries. And I was like, oh yeah, I haven't done that yet. So I literally just found the first novella and I started reading it that night. I finished it later that night. It's really short because it's a novella, but we are following Murderbot. The Murderbot calls themselves Murderbot. And so we get to find out about their personality and what exactly is going on and what they suspect might be happening in the wider world. Like maybe Murderbot is programmed with things that they might not want to be programmed with, or that they didn't realize they were programmed with. So they thought they had one mission, but now they're finding evidence that maybe they have a secret mission that they don't want to have. So I don't know how else to say it without giving away what happens. And it's such a small book that it's easy to give away the main plot. So I liked it. And I think if you like sci-fi stuff, especially little quirky sci-fi things, that you would really like it. Just to give it a try. It's not very long. It's not going to take a ton of time. And I really liked it. So I will be continuing with the Murderbot Diaries. And now we get to J.D. Robb. These are all the books that I finished in my December in Death. Now, originally, I had planned to read all of the books for December in Death because I wanted to be done with the series by the end of the month. However, if you have seen my script video, then you know already that there are only certain books that you can get during the whole month. And what I discovered was that these J.D. Robb books, it do eventually go away. So I actually got to read 6 of them before December 22nd. And then I had to finish 2 more after December 22nd. And that was as far as I got. So these 8 books are the ones that I read in December. And no, that is not the whole series. So if you are continuing on with me into 2023, we will be continuing in Death. I still love them. I still love them. I will still be reading them in the next year. And I do. How I love them after so many books, I don't know. I wish somebody else could explain them to me, like why they're still so good after this long that we've been reading them, because I would like to know. Django has heard another dog barking and he needs to go investigate. So, bye Django. And that's going to do it for this wrap up. I hope this wasn't too long, but let me know what you think about these kind of wrap ups and me doing it this way. Also, I think I'm going to start posting these updates on Instagram or something just every day to be like, and here's what today looks like. And when I have a book crossed off, that means I finished reading it. So I think that's what I'll do going forward. And I just want to know what you guys think about it. Was this better? Should I do a mid-month wrap-up where I just talk about the first half? That way it's not as long as this. I am open to all suggestions. Just let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.